So right now we're kind of trailing in North Carolina as far as the amount of our population filling out the census. So we need to do a good job, and you can go on and do it online. It takes about 15 minutes. But just encourage yourself, your employees, and others to fill out that census. More than happy, Rand, to take any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, you can type them down into the chat, or you could just raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask Todd a question. Katrina wrote that as well as the school system would appreciate y'all sending items to them as well. They have a very large following with the Mount Airy City Schools and Surry County Public Schools. So any questions for Todd?
If you can't think of them now or don't want to ask them in front of everybody, feel free to call me, 336-401-9900, which is our office number, or 401-1660, which is my mobile number. You know, so I know how it is. People ask you for a question. You can't think of one. 5 minutes later, when it's all done, you come up with one. So just feel free to give me
John Narn had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Todd, how you doing?
Good, John. How are you?
Appreciate everything you've been doing. I'm doing fantastic. Hey, I've been working on the CARES Act with our local bank. Started as soon as before it actually happened, we started working on it.
Yes, smart.
I think we're supposed to get a disbursement on Monday. So it happens really quick, but you've got to be prepared to do this. And it's really easy form, very easy to fill out, but you're going to need your 941s if you're a corporation, P&Ls, and things like that for your bank. But one thing, it's supposed to cover the payroll and also rent and some utilities. But the smaller banks are probably just going to cover payroll, just so you know when you go into this. They're not able to do the rents and things like that. Some of the bigger banks are if you got a relationship there. So just kind of keep that in mind. Thank you for the information on business owners being able to get unemployment. Did not know that.
Yes.
And
I confirm that a lot of it's based on how your business is set up. But in the webinars that I've been, is that, you know, you're applying for the PPP and the EIDL as a business. Now, if you're an employee of that business and you have to cease operations, you can apply for uninsurance as an employee, even as a sole proprietorship. You know, and that question's come up several times, and up to this point, the answer has been yes, you can apply.
Okay, now we're a corporation, we're still running.
Right? Are you
I chose not to draw a salary so it can extend out, you know, length of time we can survive this.
Right, and also make sure that if you do apply for the PPP and the EIDL, you know, you can't use those two things for the same thing. Like you can't use both of those loans for payroll, or you can't use both to pay your rent. You can only use one or the other. So keep that in mind as well. You can't combine those to pay a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Keep all that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think they're gonna kind of do audits, make sure that money's going exactly where you say it's going to go. So it's got to go to payroll or whatever you say that's going to go to. Definitely on that. I'm a little shout out with us here. We've got our PPEs here that we developed, and we're all set to roll these out. We've got plastics coming in, so face shields. We're going to be giving most of these away. So this is for the local community. If anybody needs some face shields, I demonstrated this to Randy yesterday. So you know, you put it on. There you go. So, but I appreciate what the chamber and you guys all have been doing for us. SCEDP, you guys are amazing.
Thank you, John. Have you talked to the hospitals about the PPE that you've got?
I put it out there. Andrew helped me a little bit with that, getting that out there. And they really wanted to see one. So now that we have these all set, we'll start getting those out to them.
All right, great.
I would mention too, as well, some of you are associated with nonprofits, that is that have the IRS designation 501c3. They are eligible for the EIDL loans as well as a PPP, I think, Todd. And we actually have, unfortunately, we found out that the chambers of commerce throughout the country were left out of the plan because we have a different IRS designation, 501c6. So they are putting us hopefully in another phase that they're rolling out, because there is some concern over a third of the chambers of commerce across the country will go out of business in the next 3 to 6 months or so. They don't have the resources to hold it together. And I was going to tell you, we do, thank goodness, but if you know of nonprofits out there that need help, there is possibly help available to them. Was there anyone else that in the group here that had applied or in the process of applying for?
I had a question, Randy.
Yeah.
I find myself with a foot in a lot of different buckets. I'm a member of an LLC. I have my own, I'm self-employed, and I'm also a 1099. Can I apply for all three of those areas? And the second part is that in the reading that I've done, it said that those folks that are 1099s or self-employed, the IRS guidelines won't be available until April 10th. Is that accurate information? Is there anything I can do before the 10th?
Todd?
I've heard that same thing. And I think what will happen is after those guidelines come out, if you apply, it can be retroactive. Anything you apply for to go back and capture, from the beginning, when those programs were first available or when your need first arose. But yeah, I've heard the same thing. And I think the answer is yes. If you're a 1099, then that 1099, you're a subcontractor, it's Todd Tucker, Inc. or whatever is a subcontractor. You could apply as a business for that. And a sole proprietorship, you can also apply for those programs as well. Again, it's the business that's applying, not the individual.
Okay, I really appreciate that, because trying to keep this all straight, knowing that one of the things we've advocated for people is that they develop multiple income streams,
right?
Which is great, but that's like being three people right now.
And it makes it complicated from an accounting standpoint. I was on a webinar just right before this one with the SBA director, and he said, we talked about some of this same stuff, and he said, look at the guidelines. He goes, make sure you understand that. Make sure if you have an accountant that you understand how it affects your businesses and your situation across all of those. And just make sure you're not cross-pollinating or using EIDL to pay for this over here.
Right.
You keep all those things separate.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Todd on the assistance that's available out there? Anything else? I will tell you, just as an observation, that it is I agree with Don. I feel like I'm back in an algebra or trigonometry class. The professor is writing something up on the board and I have no clue what he's saying. It is quite complicated, and especially I worry about small businesses who don't have the resources or sole proprietors. They're relying on, I frankly would believe that if you have a relationship with a banker, that's a person that I think that can help you. I've also reached out to the Chamber's accountant. The CPAs are pretty well versed in it because, as Todd said, it could affect your taxes in this year or future years. So Todd, we appreciate you sharing that with us. Again, I put up on the chat area of the Chamber's website. You want to go to that website and look for that link for COVID-19 resources. There's a tremendous amount of information there, and I would encourage you to do that. Checking my notes here.